There's a truth I want to remind you of today. God is with you in every situation. Now, you might hear that and think, I know that already, but do you really know it? Do you believe it deep down when the storms of life hit, when things don't go according to plan? Because that's when this truth matters the most. In life, it's easy to feel like we're alone, especially during the difficult moments when everything seems to fall apart. But the truth is, God's presence is not conditional. It doesn't come and go based on your circumstances or how you feel. God is constant, unchanging, and ever present, whether you sense it or not. Even when you feel abandoned, God is still right there with you. Sometimes in the quiet moments when nothing seems to be happening, we may think God has distanced himself. We may wonder if he's forgotten about us or if he's busy with someone else's problems. But God doesn't operate on human emotions or actions. He is not like us, moving closer when things are good and drifting away when things are bad. His presence remains steady regardless of the storms you face or the seasons you're in. In fact, the Bible reminds us that God is omnipresent. He is everywhere at all times. No place you go is out of his reach. No situation you face is too far for him to intervene. Even in the darkest moments of life, when you feel like the walls are closing in and hope seems distant, God is right there walking with you, guiding you, sustaining you. When you truly understand that, it changes how you handle adversity. You no longer look at trials as battles you have to fight alone. Instead, you realize that you have a divine presence with you, working for you and in you. His presence brings peace that goes beyond understanding because you know you're not alone, no matter how lonely the world might make you feel. God is not only present in the obvious blessings, the moments of success, joy, or celebration. He's also present in the valleys, in the uncertainty, and in the times when nothing makes sense. And in those moments, his presence often shines the brightest, offering comfort, guidance, and strength when we need it most. When you begin to trust that God is always present, even when you can't feel or see him, it strengthens your faith. You stop relying on external signs to know he's there because his word assures you that he will never leave nor forsake you. That promise doesn't expire and it doesn't depend on your circumstances. Fear is a natural human response when we face uncertainty, challenges, or things that seem beyond our control. It's easy to let fear take over, clouding our judgment, distorting our perspective, and making us feel like the situation is too big or too overwhelming to handle. But faith is the antidote to fear. It's the belief that no matter how dire things seem, God is still in control. When we choose faith over fear, we are saying that we trust in God's plan, even when we can't see the full picture. Fear often tries to make us believe that our problems are bigger than they actually are, that we are powerless, and that the worst case scenario is inevitable. But faith counters that. Faith reminds us that God is bigger than our problems, that he is powerful enough to handle anything we face, and that his plans for us are for good, not for harm. When we lean on faith, we shift our focus from what we see to what we know that God is with us, and he is able to do exceedingly more than we can imagine. It's not that fear won't come, it's that when it does, faith steps in and says, I choose to trust God over my circumstances. Faith doesn't ignore the challenges or pretend that everything is fine. Instead, it acknowledges the reality, but still chooses to believe that God can make a way where there seems to be no way. Fear tries to paralyze us to keep us from moving forward. But faith propels us into action, trusting that God will guide our steps, even when we can't see the path clearly. When we live by faith, we walk with the assurance that we are not alone in our battles. Fear isolates us, makes us feel like we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. Faith, on the other hand, reminds us that we don't have to carry it all ourselves because God is with us, walking alongside us, bearing the weight that we cannot. It's in those moments of fear that faith becomes most powerful because it teaches us to surrender control to God and trust that he knows what he's doing. Faith over fear is a daily choice. It's a mindset that says, no matter what happens, I will not let fear dictate my decisions. I will trust in God's plan and his promises, knowing that he will see me through. It's a declaration that no matter how scary the situation may seem, you believe in a God who is bigger than any fear you might face. In life, we often make plans and set goals based on what we think is best for ourselves. We envision a path that seems smooth and logical, free of obstacles, and leading directly to success or happiness. But sometimes life doesn't go according to our plan. We face unexpected challenges, delays, and detours. In those moments, it's easy to feel frustrated, to wonder why things aren't working out the way we hoped. But what we need to understand is that God's plan is greater than ours. His perspective is so much bigger, and His purpose for our lives goes far beyond what we can see or comprehend. God sees the whole picture, past, present, and future. He knows the path we need to take to reach the destiny He has set for us, even if that path is different from what we had in mind. While we may focus on immediate results or temporary solutions, God is concerned with our long-term growth, purpose, and ultimate fulfillment. His plan often involves taking us through situations we wouldn't choose for ourselves because He knows what we need to develop, to grow, and to become the person He created us to be. When things don't go our way, it's easy to question whether God is really in control. But it's precisely in those moments that we need to trust Him the most. His plan may involve seasons of waiting, moments of discomfort, or even loss, but none of that is without purpose. God uses every experience, whether good or bad, to shape us, to prepare us for what lies ahead, and to teach us valuable lessons that we could never learn if everything went according to our own plans. There's a greater purpose at work, and sometimes that means things will take longer or unfold differently than we expect. But when we trust that God's plan is greater, we can find peace even in the uncertainty. We realize that what may seem like a setback is often a setup for something far better than we could imagine. God's timing is perfect, and His ways are higher than ours. He orchestrates events and circumstances in ways that we cannot always understand in the moment, but in hindsight, we often see His hand guiding us towards something better. What we think is best for us may not always be what we truly need. God's plan is not just about giving us what we want, but about fulfilling His purpose for our lives. He knows our true potential and the greatness that lies within us. Sometimes that means He allows us to face struggles or challenges, not to harm us, but to strengthen us. He refines us through trials, teaches us through delays, and positions us for blessings we couldn't see coming. Ultimately, God's plan is about aligning us with His will, which is far greater than anything we could ever dream or plan for ourselves. When we surrender our own plans and trust in His, we open ourselves up to a life that is richer, more meaningful, and more aligned with the purpose He designed for us. It might not always be easy, but we can rest assured that His plan is always for our good, even when we don't fully understand it in the moment. In life, there are times when it feels like nothing is happening. We pray, we wait, and yet everything seems still, almost as if God has gone silent. It's in these moments that we may begin to question, wondering if God has forgotten us or if our prayers are being heard. But what we often fail to realize is that God is always working, even when we can't see it. He is constantly at work behind the scenes, orchestrating events, moving pieces into place, and preparing things for the right moment. God doesn't always work in the ways we expect or in the timing we desire. His methods are often hidden from our view because He sees the bigger picture. Just like an artist who meticulously paints layer by layer before revealing the masterpiece, God is arranging details in ways that we aren't aware of, setting up circumstances for our ultimate good. We might not understand it in the moment, but He is doing something far beyond what we can comprehend. We tend to want immediate results. We expect to see progress or change right away. But much like a seed planted in the ground, growth happens where we can't always see it. Beneath the surface, roots are forming, the foundation is being built, and at the right time, it will break through. This is how God often works. While we're waiting and wondering, He's nurturing and developing things in the background, ensuring that when it finally comes to pass, it's in the best possible way. Sometimes the delays we experience aren't denials from God, they are part of His preparation process. He may be aligning situations, changing people's hearts, or allowing circumstances to unfold that will better position us for what's to come. His ways are intentional even when they seem mysterious to us. He is always several steps ahead, working out every detail with precision. In relationships, in career, in personal growth, whatever area you're trusting God with His unseen hand is at work. We may not be aware of every intricate detail, but God is like the director of a grand production, coordinating every scene, every actor, and every moment. He is not idle, even in the times of silence. The very things we think are going unnoticed or unaddressed are often being taken care of in ways we couldn't have predicted or planned ourselves. When we feel stuck or when it seems like nothing is happening, that's when God is often doing His greatest work behind the scenes. He's shifting things in our favor, aligning people and resources, and preparing us internally for the blessings He has in store. Sometimes He is growing our character, strengthening our faith, or teaching us patience. In all of this, He is ensuring that when the answer comes, we are ready for it and can handle it with wisdom and grace. Even when life feels chaotic or uncertain, and it seems like nothing is progressing, God's hand is always at work, unseen but present. Just because we can't perceive what He's doing doesn't mean He isn't active. His invisible work often leads to the most visible results in our lives, and when we finally see the outcome, we'll realize that He was working all along, preparing something far better than we could have imagined. In life, we all have dreams, goals, and aspirations that we want to achieve. But often, the path to reaching those goals is not a straight line. There are twists, turns, and unexpected obstacles that make us question whether we're on the right track. We may find ourselves frustrated with the waiting, impatient with the progress, and discouraged when things don't go as planned. This is where trusting the process becomes essential. When we trust the process, we acknowledge that progress takes time and that growth doesn't happen overnight. Every small step we take, even when it feels insignificant, is part of a larger picture. It's easy to get caught up in wanting immediate results, but true success requires perseverance and faith that the journey we are on is leading us to the right place. It's understanding that sometimes things need time to develop, and what looks like a delay may actually be preparation for something greater. Trusting the process means having faith in the journey, even when you can't see the outcome clearly. It's about embracing the challenges, knowing that each one is shaping you, refining you, and making you stronger. The hardships and setbacks are not there to break you, but to build your character and resilience. In every setback, there's a lesson to be learned. In every delay, there's something being refined within you. When you trust the process, you stop resisting the difficulties and start seeing them as part of the preparation for what's ahead. One of the hardest parts of trusting the process is the waiting. We live in a fast-paced world where we expect quick fixes and instant gratification. But the most valuable things in life often require patience. Just as a plant takes time to grow after the seed is planted, the results we desire take time to manifest. Trusting the process means understanding that the timing isn't in our control, but that doesn't mean progress isn't happening. Even when we can't see it, things are moving forward in ways we might not be aware of. There's a deeper level of trust involved here, one that goes beyond just believing in the process itself. It's about trusting that the detours, the roadblocks, and even the failures are all working together for your good. It's recognizing that there's a greater plan at work and every experience is contributing to your growth and success, even the ones that seem like they're holding you back. Sometimes the detours lead us to unexpected opportunities, and the delays help us gain the wisdom and experience we need for the future. When we trust the process, we also learn to let go of the need to control everything. We begin to understand that we don't have to have all the answers or see the entire path laid out before us. We don't have to force things to happen on our timeline. Trusting the process means surrendering to the idea that what's meant to be will come to pass in the right time and in the right way. It's learning to enjoy the journey rather than being fixated solely on the destination. There's a beauty in the process itself because it's during this time that we learn the most about ourselves. We discover strengths we didn't know we had. We develop patience and we build faith. The process shapes us into the person we need to become to handle the success that's waiting for us. If everything came easily or too quickly, we wouldn't be able to appreciate it or sustain it. Trusting the process allows us to grow into the best version of ourselves, equipped to not only achieve our goals, but to thrive in them. Ultimately, trusting the process is about maintaining hope and faith, even when the road is difficult or unclear. It's knowing that the journey is as important as the destination, and that every step, no matter how small or challenging, is bringing us closer to where we're meant to be. It's a mindset that shifts our focus from frustration to faith, from impatience to trust, and from doubt to belief in the path that's unfolding before us. Life is full of situations that test us, challenge us, and sometimes leave us questioning why we go through certain hardships. We encounter moments of joy, but also moments of struggle, pain, and uncertainty. It's natural to wonder what purpose these difficult situations serve. But when we look deeper, we come to understand that God uses every situation, both the good and the bad, to promote growth in our lives. Each experience we go through is an opportunity for us to develop into the person God has called us to be. When life is easy, we tend to stay within our comfort zones, but true growth happens when we are pushed beyond what is familiar. Challenges have a way of stretching us, revealing strengths we didn't know we had, and showing us areas where we need to grow. In moments of difficulty, God is at work, shaping our character, building our resilience, and teaching us lessons that will serve us in the future. Sometimes the very situations that seem the most difficult or painful are the ones that bring the greatest growth. God doesn't waste a single experience. He uses them to refine us, like gold being purified in the fire. When we go through trials, He is molding us, developing patience, humility, and faith in ways that could never happen if life were always smooth and easy. It's in the tough times that we learn how to trust Him more deeply, to rely on His strength instead of our own, and to grow in our faith. Even situations that seem like setbacks can be used for growth. What we perceive as delays or failures are often opportunities for God to work something deeper in us. He may be teaching us perseverance, showing us how to keep going when things get tough, or how to maintain hope even when the future seems uncertain. These moments are not wasted, they are preparation for the next stage of our journey. God uses these experiences to equip us for greater things, making sure we are ready for what He has in store. In every situation, God has a purpose. Whether it's through times of joy, where we learn gratitude, or times of sorrow, where we learn empathy, every moment is a tool in His hands for our growth. He doesn't just allow challenges to happen by chance. He uses them to develop in us the qualities that are necessary for our spiritual and personal growth. When we face adversity, we are often being prepared for something greater. We gain wisdom, maturity, and a deeper understanding of God's purpose for our lives. Moreover, through these experiences, we often gain a greater sense of compassion for others. When we have walked through difficult situations ourselves, we are more equipped to help those who are going through similar struggles. Our pain becomes a tool not only for our own growth, but for the growth of others as well. God uses our experiences to give us a heart that can empathize with others, enabling us to offer support, encouragement, and understanding in ways we never could have before. God's plan for our lives is not just about comfort or ease, it's about transformation. He wants us to grow into the fullness of who He created us to be. This means that every situation, no matter how challenging, is an opportunity for us to become more like Him, to grow in faith, love, patience, and understanding. The experiences we face, no matter how tough, are part of a greater plan designed to help us reach our full potential. Ultimately, God uses every situation for our good, even when it doesn't feel like it in the moment. We may not always understand why we go through certain things, but when we trust that He is in control, we can rest assured that He is using each experience to grow us, shape us, and prepare us for the future He has planned. Every challenge is an invitation to trust Him more deeply, to lean into His wisdom, and to allow Him to use every situation for our growth and His glory. In life, we often find ourselves seeking answers, direction, or solutions to the challenges we face. We turn to prayer, lifting our hearts to God, hoping for immediate responses. But more often than not, the answers we seek don't come as quickly as we desire. It's in these moments that we learn an important lesson. Prayer and patience go hand in hand. The act of praying is not just about making our requests known, but about trusting that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with our own. Prayer is a powerful expression of our faith. It is how we communicate with God, lay our burdens at His feet, and seek His guidance. But it's important to remember that prayer is not a magic formula for instant results. It's not simply about asking and receiving immediately. Often, after we pray, there is a period of waiting, sometimes longer than we'd like. This is where patience becomes essential. It's in the waiting that our faith is tested and strengthened. When we pray, we are invited to trust in God's timing, which is not always easy. We live in a world that values immediacy, where waiting is often seen as a setback. But God operates on a different timetable, one that is rooted in His wisdom and understanding of the bigger picture. While we may want answers now, He sees what we cannot see and knows when the time is right for His will to unfold in our lives. This requires us to exercise patience, believing that He is working even when we don't see immediate results. Patience in prayer also allows us to grow spiritually. It teaches us to rely not on our own timing or understanding, but on God's. When we are willing to wait for His answer, we learn to trust Him more deeply. We develop a deeper sense of dependence on His wisdom, knowing that He will answer in the way that is best for us. This process of waiting refines us, shaping our character and our relationship with God. We learn to be still and know that He is in control, even when our circumstances seem uncertain. Moreover, patience in prayer is a sign of faith. It shows that we trust God enough to wait for His answer, knowing that His plans are greater than ours. It's easy to lose hope or become frustrated when answers don't come quickly, but true faith is found in those moments of waiting. It's in those times that we are reminded that God's delays are not denials. He is always listening, and He is always working on our behalf, even when we don't see the results right away. In the waiting, God often works on our hearts. Sometimes the delay in receiving an answer is not because God isn't hearing us, but because He is preparing us. He may be using the time to mold our character, to teach us lessons of perseverance, or to align circumstances in ways we couldn't have planned. Patience in prayer allows us to surrender control, trusting that God knows what is best and that He is preparing the way for something far better than we could imagine. This combination of prayer and patience also deepens our relationship with God. As we wait for His answers, we are drawn closer to Him. We learn to seek not just the answers we desire, but the peace and presence of God Himself. In this process, we discover that the true reward is not always the answer to our prayers, but the transformation that happens within us as we learn to trust God more fully. When prayer is combined with patience, we align ourselves with God's timing and trust His process. It's in this posture of faith that we are able to experience the fullness of what He has for us. Waiting on God in prayer is not passive. It is an active expression of faith. We continue to pray, to trust, and to believe that He will answer in His perfect time. And when the answers do come, we are often able to look back and see that the waiting was part of the blessing as it prepared us for the fulfillment of His plans. Ultimately, prayer and patience go together because they both require trust in God. Prayer invites us to pour out our hearts to Him, and patience invites us to trust that He hears us and will act according to His perfect will. When we embrace both, we find peace in knowing that God is always faithful and His timing is always right. In life, there are moments when we feel completely alone, as if no one understands what we're going through or how deep our struggles truly are. These moments of isolation can be overwhelming, causing us to question if anyone, even God, is truly there with us. But the truth is, no matter what we face or how isolated we may feel, God's presence is constant. He will never leave you. When times are tough, it's easy to let fear or doubt creep in and convince us that we are walking through our trials alone. But God promises that He will be with us through every storm, every heartache, and every challenge we encounter. His commitment to us is unwavering, regardless of our circumstances. Even in our darkest hours, when we feel abandoned by others or when life feels unbearable, God is right there, standing beside us, offering His comfort and strength. God's presence is not dependent on our feelings or perceptions. Even when we can't see him working or we don't feel his closeness, he remains with us. He understands the depths of our emotions and the weight of our burdens, and he never turns his back on us. His love is steadfast, and his promise to never leave us is not conditional on our circumstances or behavior. It's a guarantee rooted in his unchanging nature. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever, and that means his commitment to be with us never wavers. In moments of trial, when everything seems to be falling apart, we can be assured that God is working behind the scenes. He doesn't promise that life will be free of challenges, but he does promise that he will walk with us through them. His presence brings peace in the midst of chaos, hope when everything feels hopeless, and comfort when the pain feels too much to bear. He never asks us to face life's difficulties on our own. Instead, he invites us to lean on him, to trust in his strength when our own is failing. It's important to remember that God is not just present in the good times. He is with us in every season of life, whether we are walking through joy or sorrow, peace or struggle. He is present when life is going well, and he is just as present when we are walking through the valley. There is no situation too difficult or too painful for him to handle. In fact, it is in those moments when we feel weakest that his presence is often the strongest. He carries us when we cannot carry ourselves and lifts us up when we are too weary to move forward. We may not always understand why we face certain trials, but we can trust that God is using them to shape and grow us. He is present not as a distant observer, but as a loving Father who is actively involved in our lives. He never abandons us to face our struggles alone. Instead, he walks with us, guiding us through every twist and turn, offering his wisdom and his grace along the way. There may be times when it feels like God is silent, but silence is not the same as absence. Even when we don't hear his voice or see immediate answers to our prayers, he is still there, working in ways that we may not yet understand. His timing and his ways are higher than ours, and sometimes what feels like a delay is actually a part of his greater plan for our lives. During these times, we must hold on to the promise that he has not left us and that he is faithfully walking alongside us, even when the path ahead seems unclear. God's faithfulness is a source of great hope. He doesn't leave us when life gets hard. He doesn't turn away when we are struggling. In fact, it's in these moments that his presence becomes even more evident. He draws near to the brokenhearted and comforts those who are in pain. His heart is for us, and his love surrounds us even when we feel unworthy or distant from him. No matter where we are or what we're going through, we can rest in the assurance that God will never leave us. His presence is a constant in an ever-changing world. People may come and go, circumstances may shift, but God's presence is eternal. He is always there, always faithful, always ready to comfort and guide us. In closing, we are reminded that trusting God is not merely an act of hope, it is a firm belief rooted in the knowledge of his unwavering presence and faithfulness. He is always with us, even in the darkest valleys and the most uncertain times. Life will undoubtedly bring challenges.